Okay, we're quickly just gonna go over some word problems now because this is the last thing we need to do. So remember when we had already gone over the graphing of our factored form. So what things do we know so far? So when we did this and we were graphing from factored form, we already knew from here what our zeros were. And we already knew that this parabola, because there's a negative in front, is going to open down, right? So we're first gonna write our step 1, because this is already in factored form. So what we're gonna end up doing is we're going to end up going into standard form, right? So when we do our step 1, we already have our zeros. So we have our zeros. When we take this out, we know that it's going to be, out of the brackets, a -3 and a +5, right? Let's box those up. Beautiful. And then our step 2. Was to put it into standard form, right? So what we did for this one is we put it in our window. We put this information into our window. And we would have x plus 3 up here and x minus 5 down here. And we would put them in here, so x squared and x times 3 is 3x. X times -5 is -5x. And then -5 times 3 gives me -15, right? And then we need to box these together and add them, right? So we're going to add -5 plus 3 is going to give me -2x. Beautiful. And then we get to write our standard form. So when we write our standard form, we write it from here down. So we're going to do x squared minus 2x minus 15. Now remember, what we need to do is we also need to realize that there is a negative in the front here. So we have to bracket these and make sure that it's negative. And then what we do is we bring this, because technically when there's no number, it just means there's a 1, right? Same thing, if I see x, it is the same as saying 1x, okay? The 1 is just not there. So what we're going to do is we're going to times our -1 by all of these, which is going to give me -x squared plus 2x, because -1 times -2 gives me a positive, plus 15. Okay, so our y-intercept now, because we can get the standard form and then we can get our y-intercept from standard form, is 15. So our y-intercept is equal to 15. And then I'm going to box this. And then our next step, just grab another color, is to find our axis of symmetry. And remember, to find our axis of symmetry, we add these two together, -3 plus 5, and divide it by 2. And we get 2 divided by 2, and 2 divided by 2 is just a 1. So our x is equal to 1. And then what we're going to do, I'm running out of colors again, our step 4 is our vertex, right? So we sub our information, our x that we just found, back in to our standard, or not our standard form, to our factored form. So we have y equals -x plus 3, x minus 5, which equals, don't forget your negative, you can even put a 1 in there if you need. We're going to put 1 plus 3, 1 minus 5, which equals negative 1. 1 plus 3 is 4. 1 minus 5 is negative 4. 4 times 4, 4 times negative 4 is negative 16. And then negative 1 times negative 16 gives me 16. So we now have our y. And then remember, with our vertex, go back and write the point. Right? So we're going to have an x, which is 1, and we just found 16. And then box it. And then what you can do is you can sketch this afterwards, because we now have everything, right? We have our zeros, we have our y-intercept, we have our axis of symmetry, and we have our vertex. And this was a word problem. I just kind of ignored the word problem. So if we're taking a look at what we just learned previous to this, right, with the greatest common factoring, and we went through all of the same steps, it's going to be the exact same thing in a word problem. So a person fires a rocket into the air. The height of the rocket, h, is in meters after a certain amount of seconds, can be modeled using this formula. So we are given, I'm going to use this lovely looking highlighter, we're given this formula. Now what does this look like? Looks like something we just used in standard form, but instead of an x, there's a t, right? So tell me everything you can about the flight of the ball. So all we have to do is do our steps that we just learned, on this page, right? So we're going to do step 1. If I can get this going. So our step 1 is to find the y-intercept, which we already know is right here. So our y-intercept is equal to 160. Again, guys, I can't stress it enough. I would recommend that you box this stuff, okay? Box it. And then our step 2 is to find our zeros. Now, because we have a number in front of this, it usually means we need to do our step 1, which is our greatest common factor, right? So our greatest common factor in our factoring process. So this is going to be a pain in the butt, but what I would do, you can write everything that is going to multiply out to. Each of them, right? We can figure out what multiplies to 2, 76, and 160. But looking at this, I can see that the multiples of 2 are 1 and 2, right? That's it. 1 times 2. So can I divide 76 by 2? Yeah, 76 divided by 2 is 38. Okay, and 160 divided by 2 is 80. So I can just take that and bring the 2 out front. But remember, we always want that negative brought out front. We want it to look as pretty as possible. So negative 2 brought out front allows me to take this number, negative 2 divided by negative 2 gives me 1, right? So I can just write it as t2, t squared. Minus, because 76 divided by negative 2, because this is a positive and this is a negative, divided by negative 2 is going to give me negative 38. That's a t, not an x. And then minus, because negative 2 divided by 160 is going to give me negative 80. So we've just done our step 1. And then our step 2 is to do our window method. So if we're going to put this into our window, then we have T2 here. And we have our negative 80 down here. And we have that these two equal to negative 38t. We're going to do all the little multiplication on the side. But, oh, sorry, things keep doing this. Two things that are going to give me negative 80 and add to 38. So it's not going to be too hard. So we know that 40 times 2 is going to give us 80, right? So we need to put a negative in front of one of them. If we put a negative in front of the 40, do they add to 38? They do add to negative 38. I can't talk or write today. So these are going to be our numbers. I'm going to write it in here. So we have negative 40x in the one side, 2x in the other, and then we can pull our t, sorry, not x, whatever variable is there. Now we're going to pull out our t here, negative 40 here, and positive 2 out here. So then we're going to write t minus 40 and t plus 2. Okay, so remember we have a third step for this one. Our third step is to go back and to write our negative 2 first. So whatever we just common factored out, and then we put t minus 40 and t plus 2. And then our zeros are, when we pull this out, remember, when we pull them out of the bracket, it turns the opposite. So negative 40 turns into plus 40. And positive 2 turns into negative 2. I'm just going to bracket both of those, I guess. So those are our zeros. And then we need to find the axis of symmetry. So that's our step 3. So to find our axis of symmetry, we need to add our zeros together. So 40 plus negative 2 divided by 2. What is going to give us 38 divided by 2? And if you use a calculator, it's going to give us 19, right? So then we need to make sure that we write it as t equals 19, right? Because technically t is our x. And then our very last step, our step 4, is to find our vertex. So when we find our vertex, we take this information that we just found and plug it back into our factored equation. So we have our factored equation as negative 2 t minus 40 and t plus 2. So let's math this out. Negative 2, put 19 minus 40 and 19 plus 2 gives me negative 21 and positive 21. And then when we do the multiplication out, so negative 2 times negative 21 times 21 gives us 882. And then remember, we need to rewrite our vertex form. So if we're going to rewrite this, we're going to write it as 882. And then box it. Now if we're going to graph this, I'm legit just going to throw in some numbers here. So we're going to have 882 here. We're going to have about 160 here. We're going to have 2 here. and we're gonna have, give or take, 40 somewhere down here, 19 in the center, right? So we're gonna just use those numbers because they're really big numbers. And I don't really feel like going up by all of those. So we're gonna take our y-intercept and we're going to plot it here. Check, we've done it. Now we're gonna take our zeros, which are, where did we find those? When we take them out, they're gonna be 40 and -2. It's a negative number. And then our axis of symmetry, which we have at 19. And then we have our vertex at 19 and 882. And then we can just finish. This is not gonna be pretty. It's not supposed to be pointed like that, but we get it. Our lovely looking parabola. So what this is telling us, so tell me everything we know about the flight of the ball. It's not a ball. The flight of the rocket. So the thing we know about the rocket is that this is its max height, right? It reaches a max height of 882 meters at 19 seconds, because this is our time and this is our height, right? So when we look at this graph, we know that it reaches a max height, so this is its max. It doesn't go any higher than this. Oh, this is not a pretty parabola. And we know that it lands after 40 seconds. And it is launched, right? It's not launched from the ground. So it's launched at 160 meters. So once we've done all of our proper steps, we can graph the parabola and we can actually get the information we need out of it. Okay, so now you guys are gonna have some questions to practice. And if you have any questions, please let me know.